Just this room of all of these folks in here, thank you so much for coming, and we know why you're all here. President Emerita of West Virginia Wesleyan College, who you all know is widely recognized for her creative and scholarly contributions, but perhaps I think even more importantly is her deep devotion to teaching, to student mentoring in the liberal arts tradition. On a personal note, she was on the search committee when I was applying to be an assistant professor here at Wesleyan, and she just embraced me with open arms, as she does to everyone. And I was just swept away by her energy and her intelligence and her humanity. And from those early days, I really got to see not only her brilliance as a scholar and a teacher and a poet, but her just incredible generosity of spirit, wise counsel, always. Encouragement of younger faculty, and just, you really just, to me, lived out the vocation of teaching. I saw that every day. But she did just a few things to note through her distinguished career. Dr. McNamara taught courses ranging from Shakespeare and Irish literature to creative writing and humanities, fostering environments that inspired open inquiry and imaginative engagement with literature. A gifted poet herself, she brought her publications and creative practice into the undergraduate and MFA programs. I know there's some of you from both here today, and I just love to see her extend that mentorship to graduate students, just in the same way that the energy and care that she gave to all of the undergraduate students here at Wesleyan. So if I could capture her essence in just one line, I'm going to quote from you a comment from a student that I just think really sums it up. The student said, the student was talking to a peer and said, "You don't take a class with Dr. Math, the class takes you." It is my pleasure and absolute privilege to introduce Dr. Devon McNamara, whose commitment to excellence, creativity, and the transformative power of literature lives on in the students she taught and will continue to live on. And she'll talk to you about, I think, one of her most lasting contributions to the college over the many years is all of the just life-changing study abroad trips that you made possible for all of our students. So,
thank you, Dean Linda. Wonderful ado.
And there is a journal, I believe, that's going around if everyone can pass it around to you in case you want to leave a note for Dr. Matt.
And I am encouraging you, I know there are a lot of us here for which I'm so grateful, but there are a lot of little doodads around. There are 3 paintings that appeared as the result of going on the trip, and one of them by faculty, and one of them which is actually Oyster Bay, Long Island, where I'm up east, where I'm from, but it was inspired by the Cliffs of Moher, which we went to very soon after getting off the plane. So I'm going to begin by reading a poem by Seamus Heaney, poet laureate, Nobel Prize winning poet of Ireland, because it says something about the original title for this talk. It's called Postscript. And sometime make the time to drive out west into County Clare, along the Flaggish shore, in September or October, when the wind and the light are working off each other, so the ocean on one side is wild with foam and glitter, and inland among stones, the surface of the slate-gray lake is lit by the earthed lightning of a flock of swans, their feathers ruffed and ruffling white on white, their fully grown, headstrong-looking heads tucked or cresting or busy underwater. Useless to think you'll park and capture it. More thoroughly, you're neither here nor there. a hurry through which known and strange things pass. A big soft buffeting comes at the car sideways and catches the heart off guard and blows it open. And I thought blowing the heart open would be a wonderful title for this talk. Doug, I know you know it by heart. However, it is a very quick tour of the Irish trips, and I have to introduce our benefactors, Tony and Lorna Lindemann, who's riding to the rescue in 2016 with the scholarships specifically for the trip. They're two wonderful, Will Lawson and Cal, two young lads who were the first recipients of the scholarships, and they are in honor of Lorna's parents, Mr. and Mrs. David Urquhart. And here's a nice thing. I wrote a poem about them called Pebble Dash. You know, the Pebble Dash sighting in Howland and in the Liberties, once we visited. And it will be in my forthcoming book, so that will be exciting. So I encourage you to read as much as you can, and I'll try to talk fast. This is Dr. Dawn Saunders, because I wanted to show how I got involved in this. As a graduate, we took steamboats in those days. We went for 4 months. Don't ask me how much it cost. You'll faint. It was just wonderful. And it changed my life. I was a young woman, 18, 19 years old. So I wanted to do it for Wesleyan students. And here's John at Warwick Castle back in the late 90s on a European trip. There's Dr. Mahoney, who was my partner for many years, William Michael Mahoney. He looks like a goalie for lacrosse, doesn't he? A splendid history teacher. Dr. Mahoney and I really actually, any veterans of the Mahoney trip here? There you are. So you know what we're talking about here. How did I get started? I interviewed this man who was the star of Riverdance after Michael Flatley. There's a couple copies of it in the back. And I again thought, we have to get on a plane. So we did. And here are the Lindemans in an informal landscape in Scotland, our benefactors. And here is John again, and also the recipient of the Distinguished Faculty Award, who really deserves a big award. And I should say, this is Tamara Bailey, Dr. Tamara Bailey, and an early traveler to Connemara. And I should say that Lane Stover, who was on the trip, anybody on a trip here with Lane Stover? There you are. Hi. She changed her entire major, am I correct? As a result of 4 or 5 days in Galway, applied for an international law degree with emphasis on human rights, and she just graduated, and she will be going back over to participate in graduation, but she got highest honors for her thesis, and you'll see a photograph of her. I went to an Aran Islands Poetry and Prose conference. Dr. Boyd Creasman said to me, some of you will remember Creasman, he said, please slap a credit card on that sucker, he said. It was 3 weeks, and some of the writers, I think you can read some of the people who were there, Frank McCourt, of course, but Joyce Carol Oates, I mean, and I do want to emphasize that when we were in Ireland, the caliber of the writers who did workshops with us is very, very high. That, by the way, is Aran Moore, not Aran Moore, but the Aran Islands and Inishmore, and that's one of the, it's not a broken off Celtic ring fort. That's what you had to climb up to if you wanted to attack that fort. There is the woman sitting over there, looking very happy in a pub with one of the Godwin lads. Anybody knew the Godwins? They were quite a strong presence in the business department here for quite some time. There's Dr. Michael Mahoney again, and Carol Pelletier, whose student is now behind our wonderful camera woman, and that woman, Sarah Shogger, became faculty here in the art program, and our initial idea was to do history, literature, and art, but of course there are a multitude of majors, so we expanded. The other woman is a theater with Bess Park Reynolds, and she was in theater. And here we have Caroline Fultz, who has said in this wonderful poster, which came from Dr. Bailey's office, and you notice the scholarship is in honor of William Michael Mahoney, that when she went to Ireland, she had an experience of great stillness, which was very important. So in addition to blowing the heart open, you know, you want the heart to be still. And there's salmon poetry, Jessie Lynn Denny, 40 years in the business, a wonderful small press over there, has written something about holy ground. The power invested in ownership conveys identity, and the struggle for identity begins and ends with place. Fields, boundaries, and borders, and river territories define the scope of our very spirits. The most intense struggle is always to get silence into our spirit. So I really felt that was a good quotation for Caroline Fuchs, who's, if anybody knows Caroline Fuchs, she's quite lively. Well, this is a country with the 4 provinces, and you can see the bay there to your left, which is where the Aran Islands are, and County Clare, of course, is where we began. This, of course, has to be a course. There has to be a bookcase with books, and you have to read the books, and you have to write a paper, and you have to do a project, and you have to read the poetry, and this is, I think there's some cookbooks, actually, several books donated by the Lindemans. They used to visit my class, you visited once or twice, and brought Irish snacks, which was really wonderful. You haven't had anything, you haven't had a flake. Or 99, which is a vanilla cone with a flake in it. But if you're standing at the edge of the Atlantic in the summertime on a little beach in Inisheer, it's the best ice cream cone in the world, and it'll make you still in your spirit. Another wonderful group. Evan Millard did the painting back there by Robert Stevens, standing there, which is speeding, driving through Cool Park. And this, of course, I have to read the first sentence. Irishmen and Irishwomen, in the name of God and of the dead generations, from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. And there is at least one person who knows it as well, very well. That was the 1916 Rising, and the scholarships were given actually at the time of that. So this is a very powerful document. Unfortunately, everybody who signed it was shot. But because they were shot over a 2-week period, the public got behind the movement. And although it took nearly a decade to have even an Irish Free State, took a while. It was an important document. Salmon poetry, there's one giving him reading. That's Jessie Lynn Denny of Salmon Poe. She loves dogs. It's a beautiful story. I won't tell you now because we don't have a lot of time, but just briefly, that whole bookstore had to move, and that was all funded by poets. They eventually did get a family grant, but they raised 50,000 euros in 3 weeks, and there was a big piece in the Irish Times about it. Poets actually supported this business. My favorite hardware store in Ireland, be honest and fear not, over the threshold. This is what salmon poetry used to look like, and now it's around the corner. And there's Lane Sober up in the upper right-hand corner, along with Jessie Lynn Denny, the former director of our MFA program, who very strongly supported these MFA trips. We did 4 of them. So that's at Salmon Poetry upstairs. And down in the lower corner is the best cook at the best B&B in Galway. And he introduced me to the granddaughter of Michael Collins' fiancée. I better stop. These are speakers in Dublin, wonderful speakers, one from Trinity with PhD in history, and Mabel Sullivan right in the middle. If you come to Ireland, you'll meet her. Some people may have met her, perhaps. And there are 3 individuals looking very fierce and very like Vikings, and they should have weapons. And the Gillespie brothers from the 23 trip. And there's our fearless leader, Tim DeWitt, a beautiful horn player. member of the West Virginia Symphony and a great leader. And I think some of you know this young redhead here, who's now a lawyer to be, right? Right? Who did his thesis on James Joyce and Juna Barnes. I think that's thanks to Ashley Lawson, I'm not sure, but it might be. And this is, maybe not. And this is the group standing in front of Molly Malone, the 2023 group. And there's Deborah Murphy, one of my wonderful partners, and also Tim DeWitt in the back there. Art classes, going to Inishir, going to Inishmore. The girl on the right is a granddaughter of a man who, up in Clifton, who is great-granddaughter, who was with Marconi when the contact was made, first contact was made. Another slide from Deborah Murphy out in the islands. And of course, I always pray for my students because there are no guardrails. And there's no way you're going to keep a student from lying down and hanging her head over. And that happens in many different ways. But it is and we had some very important meetings in 2023 with both sides of the issue. And in contrast with when I was there earlier, it was a little more tense than it's been in a while. And so these murals, there's the Falls Road, right? The Shankill Road, the Protestant and the Catholic. The reconciliation groups, I think those of you who went, and they were really worthwhile, deeply, deeply worthwhile. And I just had to put this in because there are so many people still who have relatives who fought in the First World War for the English as well, quote unquote, for the English, and we're part of it. So it's a very deeply layered political situation there, very, very rich and constantly moving and progressing. And the reconciliation groups are doing a very good job. There we are when people have to climb, right? And I should mention that the lads on the left met Bono. Some of you would know who Bono was. And nobody believed them. They were in the Guinness storehouse. And they came to me in the hotel later and said, Dr. Mack, we met Bono. And they said, yeah, he sang to us. And the other students on the tip said, no, it's his double. But I should say that that is a quality of celebrity life very often in Ireland. People are right there on the street. You can see people, talk to them. We went to the Gate Theatre and saw, I think his first name was, last name was Prosky. He was in Mrs. Doubtfire. And he was on stage at the Gate Theatre. And 3 of our students knocked on the door to say they enjoyed the performance. And he just stood there and talked to them. And after he left, they all went, but it's a different world, and in many, many ways, which is very, very congenial if you're an artist. So I should point out the young woman behind her went twice on the trip. That would be Danielle Stump, and both times she walked up Maeve's tomb in flip-flops. Maeve's tomb, you get all of Sligo Bay to look at. Endless times. Well, a quick reversion now. I think we'll be pretty good. These are 3 of our MFA students, which you'll recognize. We are hoping to have, and you'll hear more about this from Doug Van Gundy, but we're hoping to have a 15-year MFA Ireland anniversary trip coming up in the spring. Well, it's official, but we'll be announcing, he'll be announcing. Irish Writers Museum. Now we have some MFA graduates. It's courtesy of Shauna Jones. This is at New Grange. It's older than the pyramids. It's a Neolithic calendar. If you're there on the winter solstice, in comes the sunlight to this chamber. It's very, very moving, even when they're simulating the sunlight. I think it's booked for the next decade or 2 for the actual solstice, because only 6 people are allowed in the chamber. but it does give you a perspective, as well as thinking, gosh, Neolithic people were smart. That's up close. How they moved these stones, very relaxed, down in Dunleary, putting our feet in the water. And then I should mention the quiet girl. Hold your ears, Doug. He's heard about it too often. Claire Keegan, a very wonderful short story writer. Her novella, Foster, which I have taught, and which many of my students have read, was made into a film and was recommended for an Oscar, nominated for an Oscar 2 or 3 years ago for Best Foreign Language Film. And I urge you to see it. It's a beautiful film. One of the first times I've ever seen actual dialogue from a real short story writer enter the actual script, which meant that the direction and the understanding of the real story was really intense. So we had a wonderful workshop with her, not this young actress, but with Claire Keegan in 2018. 18th century manor house on the shore of County Clare outside Doolin, and it's where we had our final banquets. A little bit of Dublin nightlife, Temple Bar. I sort of thought the racing shown 7 days a week was an interesting combination with, if all economists were laid end to end, they would never George Bernhardt show. But I don't know, George Bernhardt, was he good with money? I'm not sure. But the presence, when we first went to Ireland, Dr. Mahoney and I and Carol Pelletier, the upholstery of Aer Lingus had quotations in English and Irish from all of the literature. That was the upholstery of the plane. So that tells you something. Oldest pub in Ireland, scene of many of a final dinner. And O'Connell Street, Daniel O'Connell, it wasn't always called O'Connell Street, liberated the Catholics. He was, some of you may know, there were horrible, horrible laws against Catholics in Ireland. And there was the great horrible massacre of the Battle of the Boyne. And so when he became a member of Parliament, he was very active in Catholic emancipation. Irish history is so connected with American history, you can't believe it. And sometimes people aren't aware of that. That's another really important reason for keeping the courses going, because and the trips going, because it really gives you an insight into our own region for very obvious reasons, all the music and the Scots-Irish, but also what America has been for the Irish. There we are. One last story. Young women on your right, Katie Markham. This is a great story. She was I did a trip to Eastern Europe. She wasn't sure about that, but she was encouraged by her advisor, Dr. John Saunders, to travel to Ireland on the Irish trip. So she did. And she loved it. But then he was, along with Tamara Bailey, I think it was Tamara was involved in this, he was very, he schooled her, he mentored her for the George Mitchell Fellowships. And she won a scholarship. And those fellowships give you a year free of charge, any Irish graduate program at an Irish university of your choice. Katie from down the valley, from between Elkins and Hendricksville. Yeah, what's that? Yeah, right, Hedgesville. Right, and her grandfather had been in World War II, and he said, if I have a smart grandchild, I'm going to see she gets to Europe. And it was really wonderful. And we saw her, this is at the end of her year, and she knew her way around, and it was just wonderful. So something else I have to thank Dr. John Saunders for, because it was an absolutely great story. Jessie Bennett. There we are with Elaine again. Jessie and I saw her in Galway this year. And yes, that's the man himself. I think we're almost out of time. Maybe we are out of time. Are we out of time?
No, you're
We're
fine.
close. This is Seamus Heaney. And during Bloomsday, which celebrates and reads at length James Joyce's Ulysses on the 16th of June in Dublin and Chicago and New York and Pittsburgh and some other places, there was also a public reading of Irish writers on Anna Livia, Irish Public Radio over there, and you could go, and we went, and we sat about 2 feet away from him and heard, and he was reading after his wife read, and this is Seamus Heaney. His wife read some really wonderful poetry, and we all clapped, and he got up and he said, "I'm the husband of the former speaker." And they read all night. People read all night. Of course, more well-known people read during the day. And they were very excited because they wanted to beat Germany. And Ireland actually beat Germany. They had more writers, really. Yeah. Mr. Joyce. And then to sort of conclude, because we started with art, this is some of the artwork by the teachers over there. Except the one in the upper right is a student, myself. But we had watercolors. This actually is a view of the islands from the shore. Another watercolor. She did it in a minute, and look how it speaks. It's just amazing. That's a real photograph. And then I think from a trip long ago, Evan Miller again, and a wonderful flutist. If James Moore was here, I think they remained friends for quite a while. She was a great flute player. You see our accommodations, how cozy they are. This is again the end of a storm, looking out onto Galway Bay. The old bookshop is actually not the best photograph. It's a wonderful antique bookshop run by Michael Slavin, who wrote a brilliant book on Tara, and the location is Tara. And finally, the Lindemans, again, with the 3 rascals with their scholarships and their leader, and this is an Easton's bookshop in Dublin. So it's great to see that. The brochures are in the back for our graduate program. There's Claire Keegan at the bottom. Dermot Bolger, very, very well known, a major writer. Brother and sister. The brother one had a great time. The sister went later. And Deborah took that, and it's me, but I always call it the old seaweed gathering woman. Up in Donegal, and the door is closed. And thank you very much.
Devon too, but I did have one extra surprise, and Doug will also discuss the Ireland trip. But as you can see, right, and all of you in this room know what a huge impact Dr. McNamara has had on this campus and beyond, and those trips that she has taken so many generations of students on, just really has changed so many lives, Lane Stover and beyond, and all the folks. And so in honor of Dr. McNamara's legacy, her retirement, and boundless enthusiasm for educating students about Ireland, alumnus Tony Lindeman of the class of 1980 and his wife Lorna, thank you so much, have established an endowed fund to continue promoting Dr. Mac's legacy so that future generations continue to experience Ireland and continue to learn about its rich history and culture and art in the classroom as well. Devon, we are so grateful for this legacy that you've established and your leadership and true vision to immerse students in Irish culture and everything. So.
Guys up there were just wonderful. They weren't on the same trip, but they were still wonderful.
I think we have time for, and I don't know if any folks want to share any of their stories or their experiences from.
Anybody wants to share? John! I'm glad to see you.
I've got a habit of appearing out of nowhere and people. I remember Ireland very, very fondly, and because I was a political science major, I was really excited to go up to Belfast to see all the to see the peace walls and everything.
And here's something about apostolic succession. Catherine Angelini, a brilliant history professor, was Dr. Martin's favorite student, and this is her son.
Brother John Saunders is sitting quiet.
Yes, he should.
Devon,
Two more.
I kept every single note that you put under our doors on our trip. Even the one where you said that you got called by the front desk because we went out at the pubs and we were very loud. I kept that note. So sweet.
I went freshman year with my friend Lauren. I don't know if you remember Sarah and Lauren, and everyone else was upperclassmen. She called us the little kittens because we were the two freshmen. Everyone else was upperclassmen. But we went to Bunratty Castle and had a big dinner there, and there was mead, and we didn't know what mead was. And kept drinking it. We had to walk down the winding staircase afterwards. And it was like, whoa. So fun.
There was a hand over here somewhere.
So I was one of Dr. McNamara's, I call her Devon's, MFA students. And you think you're wide red until Devon gets a hold of you and stops everything down. And so in the MFA, like she would assign us like 6 long stories and these amazing poems. And then my favorite Devon story is we'd be in the MFA and you've done your homework, right? This is like an intensive writer's retreat. And she would only get through the first paragraph of the first poem because she has so much to share. But it was just delightful. It was really encouraging. And my other favorite thing is Devon really encourages that it's a conversation, so you're not just learning about history or reading great books, but you're encouraged to write and join the conversation. And so I really want to miss you.
I'm just overwhelmed by seeing you all. Thank you. And just seeing Tom here, speaking of Irish theater, we went to see a Colin McPherson play. These dreadful, dreadful louts, all alone on Christmas, half drunk, lying around. But the devil comes, and they beat him at poker, and it's the most wonderful play, and it's called the Wayfarer, the Seafarer, and this is the Gate Theater, and there were 4 or 5 curtain calls, people screaming and shouting, and Ashley Higginbotham Huffman, who was on the trip, when she was Higginbotham, then she said, "Is this what they do in an Irish theater?" I said, "This is unusual in any theater." But, yes, indeed, Irish people love their theater. Absolutely. If you want to go in a good theater, go. You went. I know you wouldn't sell things. So, I'm just so grateful to see you all.
Did you want me
I
to?
see you.
Would you like me to say a word or two about?
MFA director, Dr. Benson.
So, in order to honor Dr. McNamara, friend, colleague, and to many and maybe all of us, we are going to have an Irish trip in May of this year. It will be writing focused. It'll be more literarily focused, but keep an eye out for an announcement. We're going to open it to MFA students past and present, but then beyond that, to anyone who might want to join. And if you want to see a play in Ireland and meet some Irish writers and do some writing on that rocky, flaggy shore, this is the opportunity to do so. So keep your eye out for further information. And if you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me. The email is mfa@wvwc.edu.
One more time for Doug.
For those of you that didn't get a program, if you'd like one, I have some business cards and I will send that to you. And also on the programs, there's a QR code. If you would like to add to the Lindemann Fund to help support students and the program, feel free to do that. Just in the designation, just write Lindemann Fund, and we'll make sure that it gets to the right place. Thank you.
Thank you. Wall, it's not completed yet. There used to be more. Are from Irene McKinney's personal library. She was on the first Irish trip ever. We gave her a reading in Dublin. It was fantastic. And there's a little something about her there. So you're in part of what used to be Irene McKinney's house in Billington.
Also, one more thing, there's a journal going around. If you haven't had a chance to sign it, make sure you do so.